What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Jersey Comic Crew. We hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. I know me and Rob definitely ate way too much.
Oh, yeah.
But now it's time to get back to business. It's time to talk Hawkeye. And we've been so deprived of shows for like the past month and a half. I'm so excited we have a TV show to talk about again, Rob.
I'm very excited. Chris, we've been deprived. We've also been spoiled because like normally it's like a year for a show. And now we're like, a month and a half we haven't gotten a new TV show. What's going on, world?
We actually have to watch TV without DVRs, people.
Oh, my God. We're going to talk a little bit about our thoughts on the first two episodes of Hawkeye. So, mind you, there are going to be spoilers. We're going to talk about some Easter eggs from the comics throughout. And the most important thing, the theories and what's going to happen next. We're going to do a separate video about that. So, make sure you stay tuned for this video and that video coming up. But first, Chris, with this show, we got to talk about Kate Bishop, right? The show starts off with Kate Bishop, and I like that we see the lens of the chaotic world that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe from a non-hero's perspective. And I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. The story starts off with her dealing with the attack on New York back in 2011, 2012, back in Avengers 1. And Hawkeye saves her life. It saves everything. And you see the wreckage that this caused. And this causes her to, like, become a superhero. Some changes in the comics. In the comics, her mother dies, right, Chris? And this, it's a little different. The father dies. Yeah. So, Chris, what do you mean by dies? For the people who don't know.
Yeah. So this kind of whole entire show is based off of Matt Fraction and David Aya's amazing Hawkeye run, one of the best Hawkeye comic series of all time. And in the comics, her mother, quote unquote, dies and comes back as one of her main villains named Madame Mask.
Yes.
So there's a lot of clues to that happening. Obviously, Eleanor is very secretive. She kind of is playing down a role that clearly she's more sinister in the background. She's this huge money tycoon. But yeah, in the beginning, like, her father obviously dies during the attack on New York. Now, whether that was because of the Chitauri or not is still a question, because, he says he's going to go down to his office. Eleanor tells Kate to go upstairs to get like a checkerboard while she's like, I'm going to go downstairs real quick.
Yeah.
All the timing seemed a little convenient. I don't know if that's going to come back and play.
It could be she killed the father, hid the body. It could be the father faked his death to become the Madame Mask. In this, they do gender bend, from male to female. They could do one female to male. There's still a lot of open ends with her family. But Chris, one of the key things you mentioned is tycoon, money tycoon. So the Bishop family, a lot of money in the Marvel universe, and in this story, in the movie universe, they're ahead of a security firm, right? Yeah. And when you see the montage of like Kate growing up, doing the shooting stuff like that, she does destroy a giant, expensive bell tower and everything. And they have a conversation with the mom. Like, it seemed like a big deal, but almost not because of how much money they have. Yeah. So she's like, hey, you're young and you're rich. Like, this happens. I get that, but not again. I'm cutting off your credit cards. Like, shame on you. And she has her own apartment in New York. Just shows you how much money that she has, right?
Yeah, that. And if it was us, we'd be in jail for the next 3 years.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But yeah, no, she destroys what's called Stane Tower, which is probably this direct correlation to Obadiah Stane back from Iron Man 1.
So you're telling me not the stains from Thanksgiving that's on my shirt?
No, not those. The 3-day-old shirt, it doesn't matter in this case. But the Stane Tower is like the Obadiah Stane Tower, probably built in his honor for like a donation, and could also be a nod to his son Zeke Stane, who again Matt Fraction created in the comics in kind of the same time period that he invented Kate Bishop. So not for sure. We obviously haven't seen anything that is going to involve Zeke, at least as of yet. He might just be a student. He might be somewhere, but he becomes kind of the second Ironmonger. So there's a possibility later down the line we might see Zeke.
I do like that. The idea of legacy characters are being introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with Kate Bishop eventually taking the Hawkeye mantle, and young Avengers are being formed. There's pieces here and there. So another essentially legacy villain that we didn't get enough of, and Marvel gets to fix that. Like, hey, we kill all our villains too quickly. Let's make some legacy ones and like let them stay around a little bit longer. Could be really cool. I'm really down for it. But talking more about the family dynamic, right? We know the mother and daughter, they seem to be cool, a little bit estranged. Really, when we get the introduction of Jack Duquesne's character, that we see the family dynamic start to shift a little bit. Obviously, Kate does not trust her. And we have one of the lines like, oh, Mom, what's with all the swords? On first watch, even for me, I have a comic book reader, Rob over here, I didn't really get it. I was like, yeah, why does this guy have all the swords? It wasn't until the fencing scene where Kate challenges the fencing. I'm like, oh, this guy's really good, and he's downplaying it. She tries to stab him in the face, and he parries real quick. I'm like, oh my God, is this who I think it is? And I'm sure for many of you, you don't know who I'm saying. The character that I'm suggesting is Swordsmaster, right? The name clicked to me finally. The swordsman skill. Swordsmaster is an anti-hero in Marvel and has some direct ties to Hawkeye, Chris.
Yeah, so like Swordmaster, it was kind of one of those like hints that was just beating you over the head, where there's like a sword in every room of the house.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
and I'm over here like, I get it, he's Swordmaster. But like, I thought his introduction was very cool. He's a guy who plays like a bad guy in everything he's in. He's like perfect for this role. He's very like secretive.
The actor, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a punchable face almost, where it's like, I know you're up to something. And yeah, his ties to Hawkeye are going to be very interesting in the comics. He actually trains Hawkeye.
He does.
Prior to Hawkeye becoming a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, prior to Hawkeye becoming, the Avenger that we know and love. So that's going to be interesting, and we'll definitely talk more about that later. But something you just touched upon I wanted to mention too is you mentioned that Kate and her mom have this kind of odd relationship. And that's something I picked up very early on when her mom and dad were arguing in that first scene.
Yeah.
And they realized Kate was kind of eavesdropping, and her mom's kind of like, and he's like, all right, which one of us is going to? She's like, of course you're going to go. Like, of course you. To me, that tells me not only do they all know that her dad is the favorite parent, but there's like an acceptance of almost like, I don't want to deal with her, you deal with it.
Oh, so I didn't get that aspect. I see that aspect now, but like my thing was, I was like, oh, he's just the more fun one. That's the one who's going to be able to make the amends. But I didn't see that.
I think there's a little bit of Kate, like in Eleanor, where it's like she probably wishes her dad was the one alive, maybe. On top of everything else or whatever else is happening. But also the look into this new section of Marvel, right? We've seen the industrialite rich people side with Tony Stark.
Yeah. But
we haven't seen kind of the villain underworld of massive controlling wealth in the Marvel universe of this scale. So that is interesting to have Kate kind of be a part of that world, but separate, where, they think she's a waiter because she's in like a suit, stuff like that.
I think it was interesting.
I think Jack Duquesne's connecting to.
I think it was interesting that the mother didn't know black market deal was going on underneath, and she organized the event. I think she knew. And Armand III maybe wanted to stop her or something like that, and that's why I think Swordsman killed her. I think Jack did it with the Ronin sword. But we'll see as that story unfolds a little bit more. After the auction, she gets back to the apartment, which is like, it looks like a training underground facility. It doesn't even look like an apartment. I was like, where's the bed? You just see like a bow and arrow range. It's a loft. Oh, in the loft. Yeah.
Yeah, so I love that. I love where her apartment is. It looks exactly like the Hawkeye apartment in the comics during the Fraction run. It's basically based on that entire design by David Aja, and like, except now it's Kate's apartment, not Clint's apartment. And there's a little comic controversy going on in that too, Rob. Ooh. I don't know if you guys know, but
no, tell me.
Because Marvel is using so much of David Aja's like work and style of art, like in the beginning, like the way the Hawkeye logo's written with the arrow and the H and the logos, the beginning stuff where you were talking about earlier, where like Kate has that montage where we're seeing her become a black belt and
which
a perfect
was awesome.
archer.
Yeah.
All that art style is from him, as well as the stuff they're taking clearly from that book. He's kind of like, dude, F you, pay me.
Pay me, yeah.
Like, this is my creative work. And you're just taking it for this show that's going to make you millions of dollars. And I'm sitting over here like, a comic artist making a comic salary. And if you're a comic fan, you know how all that stuff goes. Bill Finger stuff, Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster. So there's a huge thing going on controversy-wise with Marvel. But anyway,
he should get paid, yeah.
He should absolutely get paid. And so she takes the dog back. I love that, like, she had the suit. She's kind of like raw and has no idea what's going on. She didn't take the suit off or take her name off the door, even though she was like careful before, but like everything's happening at the same time.
Yeah, and she's a kid, which is great.
Yeah.
She's making these mistakes and she doesn't realize it. And it's not until we see Clint's side of the story that we're like, see from his perspective, and we're like, oh, you're making all these mistakes. You're a rookie in this, right? Yeah. To talk about Clint's story a little bit, the family vacation. We were both wrong. We thought their family was split up. She's like, no, spend time alone with the kids.
I didn't think the family was split up. You thought the family was split up.
Yes, I was wrong.
Let's get that correct.
You were kind of nodding some points when I made that argument. All right, they're all together and they're at the Rogers the Musical play.
Yes.
Which
That.
Ant-Man wasn't there. They threw him in. I guess they needed another person.
Maybe it was Civil War? I don't know.
I don't know. Hawkeye was not enjoying it. This is where we see the first use of his hearing aids. Fantastic to tune everything out. What I really liked was, like, you know, he still wants to do good, but like he's not really enjoying the spotlight. And you see that theme throughout the whole episode. You know, sometimes it's thrown in the face. Like, he's at the urinal. He sees Thanos was right, kind of nods his head. And this guy pulls up right next to him, which you never do, man. We know that.
Tell everyone rule number one. Just tell everybody
one space. Or as far as you could get.
Yes. You always break one. There's always a middle urinal that you don't take.
He's a superhero. You should give him two. You should give Cunt two. Have him stay in the side.
Give him the whole bathroom. Just wait till he's
done. And he wants to get a selfie, and he's like, man, it's not the right time. And he's hovering and doing this. And he's not really enjoying this. I got a question for you. When they go to the Chinese restaurant, meal gets comped. You save the city. Thank you so much. I understand he's a hero. I love that scene, but at the same time, I kind of was upset because people know Falcon in the Falcon and Winter Soldier saved the universe. People know him. He asked for a bank loan, nothing for free, and then denied him. And I was upset. I was like, obviously, there's definitely a difference between shade of color where you are, but I was
that
like,
too.
But
yeah, that's also, you know, you're absolutely right. I think that's part of what Falcon Winter Soldier was tackling, right?
Yes,
it was part of the story as far as exposing this to people who don't have to deal with that every day. This stuff happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But there is also a big difference getting a bank loan than getting free Chinese food.
Oh, I mean, that is also very true.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot different than a banker saying we're going to loan you thousands and thousands of dollars than maybe like a $150 bill at a Chinese restaurant in New York City where you are most known, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, there is definitely, I absolutely picked up on that. There is definitely that major difference of lifestyle as well as show choice, right? That show's tackling a race situation throughout the whole arc. This show seems to be more about a PTSD situation, forgiving yourself situation, like moving on situation. Because as you said, he has a hearing aid now. I loved when Kate asked him the question at some point, I think it was the beginning of episode 2, where she's like, you know, do you know, like, how did that happen? And he like has just a montage in his head of all the crazy explosions and falls he's been in. And he's like, I don't know, you know what I mean? It's just wear and tear because he's human. He's not super powered. So I love that. And obviously seeing the character of Natasha in the play affected him. And then what kind of broke that was the little girl who was like cosplaying as her in the audience who turned around and waved to him. And like, I'm sure he still has this survivor's guilt situation going
100%.
on. Where on top of what's going on with the Ronin stuff that he didn't finish because he was basically taking out the loss of his family during the Thanos
who was
snap.
the one who stopped him from being Ronin? Who's the one that essentially saved him again? Natasha. So all this weight is onto him. But I do like the interaction with Clint and Kate. And Kate kind of like wakes him up and says, hey, you're the cool loner type hero. That's cool, but that doesn't really sell. He's like, what am I selling? Toys? I don't really care about that. She's like, no, you're selling hope. And we kind of see that example in the LARPing scene, right? In the LARPing scene where like he needs to get the Ronin suit back because like some schmuck got it from the fire. And the guy's like, let me kill you. It'll make my day. It'll make me a legend. And he reluctantly does it and then realizes like, it's like the Grinch, right? And it's kind of like a allegory to the Grinch. I think we're going to get that. Like his small heart is going to grow 3 times the size and break, right? And we're seeing his heart grow. Like he's understanding that he needs to be this kind of hero. But I think by the end of the series, he's going to be like going in the Shadow Organization, let her do it. But that's just my take here. But last thing we want to talk about here is the villains, essentially. And what I mean by the villains is the tracksuit mafia and that mysterious character we saw at the end, right? Chris, the tracksuit mafia, first of all, hysterical, bro. They're criticizing me about the warehouse that's all being turned into lofts. Like, he's criticizing me. I don't understand. You joke, I know joke. We're interrogating you.
No warehouses anymore. Everything is lofts.
I love them. I love the accent. I love the whole interplay between them. And if I'm not mistaken, they have some hints in the comics. Am I wrong, Chris?
Yeah, I actually like that they changed the name a little bit for the show. It was a little too kooky for even comic books. in the comics, they're called the Russian tracksuit Draculas.
Yeah.
Because all their tracksuits are like red and black Adidas. But they're
like the Mafia
exactly
better.
the same way in the comics. They're these kind of like pure grunt types. None of them have much of a brain. They say bro at the end of every sentence.
I love that.
They're kind of just mindless like brutes who just fight. As we saw with like the Molotov cocktails that they just throw into the apartment. And yeah, obviously at the end of that, we get Maya Lopez, who is running the tracksuit mafia, aka Echo, who we will see later on probably become Echo. And obviously she's getting a spin-off series down the line. And another character who we might see later on, and again, there's only 4 episodes, we already got a glimpse of him. And it was a weird part where I was like, why is this happening? It's the part where Kate gets away and one of the tracksuits takes his mask off and he's like staring at her. And I'm like, why would you take your mask off? And that is actually Kazi the clown in the comics. He paints his face white. He's kind of like one of the generals of the tracksuit mafia. He's the one with like a little more of a brain. And he's kind of the guy who's sitting to the right where like Clint's quote unquote tied up and is just like, are you the manager? Who can I speak to?
He's the one sitting down looking at everything.
Looking at everything from kind of like the top area. He is absolutely insane. He is like completely nuts. But that's Kazi the clown in the comic books, who might be part of this like villain centric stuff. But
I like that.
Like overall, Rob, as we kind of wrap up in final thoughts, my biggest takeaway from this is, wow, this is really more of a Kate Bishop show. This is definitely a transition from Clint retiring. He's got a hearing aid. He doesn't want to do this anymore. He just wants to go home and be like, his whole thing is getting home for Christmas, right?
Yes.
Clearly his daughter is his favorite, which is great. That's I believe Anthony Russo's daughter. And I like how like she kind of gave him this clock of like, you need to be home for Christmas. And this is kind of transitioning to Kate. The show started off with Kate. And the other thing is just, I love that Kate is all of us.
Yes.
Her viewpoint of the Avengers, her viewpoint of life, her inspiration, like that little touch in the beginning of seeing a different side of the first Avengers movie, which we've all seen 1,000 times, is new, fresh Avengers footage, and having that be there the whole time. And obviously her reaction, you're Hawkeye, blah, 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 her favorite Avenger, is kind of how we all feel. So I like that she's a character that is going to be a hero, but is also a great character as an audience character too.
Overall, I do really like the show. I think it's fantastic. This is very much Kate Bishop's story transitioning to Hawkeye. Like, it's obviously Kate Bishop heavy in the beginning. We're going to see more Hawkeye. But I think this is opening one chapter, closing another. In respects of, like, we're closing one chapter of Hawkeye. I don't think he's done. Like I said, I think he's going to be doing good in the shadows, more secret agent style, maybe working for the secret Avengers team that's being built in the shadows, right? So that way he could still be with his family, go on missions and help the world, because he's not the type to just stay home and not help people. So I think that's what we're gonna get.
Little old man Hawkeye?
Ooh, maybe, but you know what? We're gonna have to see in the next couple of weeks how the show progresses. Guys, let us know down in the comments below what you think of the Hawkeye show. What do you think is going to happen next? And stay tuned for a theories episode coming out in just a day or two. And we're going to talk about what's going to happen next for the next episode, as well as the series for Hawkeye.
And guys, thanks so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up, like. It really helps the channel out a lot. If you're new, subscribe. Turn on those notifications. You don't want to miss any more of our Hawkeye coverage. It's going to happen every week as it comes out, and you don't want to miss it. And as always, if you missed anything on the channel, you can check it out anywhere right now. And as always, my name is Chris Heller. That is Rob Moran. We're the Jersey Comic Crew, and we'll see you next time.